The seventh prince is both wealthy and stunning. The only thing is, he's so sickly that he seems far too frail. But as a girl from my household, I'm short on cash and full of wild energy. I just so happen to have a lot of strength to spare. From now on, I'll protect you. Just make sure to provide my tribute on time, pay for my food, drinks, and fun. I thought I'd only be protecting him for a little while, but I never imagined this man would be so shameless. He's trying to cling to me for the rest of his life. I clutched a small wooden box. I jogged all the way down the street, taking advantage of my young age and my small stature. I darted swiftly through the pedestrians. Inside the wooden box was a top-tier treasure I'd worked hard to get, a red-headed cricket that looked incredibly majestic. I named him the Red-Headed Grand Marshal. Today is the day of the appointment with those boys from the west side. Last time we went out for a cricket fight, I lost 3 rounds. Including a small accessory my grandfather gave me. I refused to accept defeat, so I went back and found this red-headed Grand Marshal. I prepared to redeem myself today. Specifically, I needed to win back my accessory. Otherwise, if grandfather asks, I won't be able to explain it. Thinking of how grandfather constantly punishes me by making me kneel in the ancestral hall to copy books, I felt a shiver run down my spine. My pace quickened a bit. From afar, I saw the west side. A group of boys gathered under the big banyan tree. My eyes lit up. I couldn't wait to get over there, to show off my new warrior to them. After running just a couple of steps, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. A carriage swung around the corner. Oh no, it was going too fast to avoid. Step aside and dodge it. The driver saw me too. He shouted at the top of his lungs for me to get out of the way. Though my figure is a bit round, I was born into a martial family. Having practiced with swords and spears since childhood, I had some skills. Seeing the carriage about to hit me, I quickly turned my body to avoid the horse's head. But I was still knocked over by the horse as it brushed past. My red-headed Grand Marshal, along with the box in my hand, flew out of my grip, ignoring the stinging pain of the scrapes. I wailed and lunged forward to catch the box. The wooden box flew straight toward the carriage. The curtain was lifted by a hand as white as jade. My eyes lit up. I immediately shouted, "Catch it." The person in the carriage seemed stunned for a moment, but he obediently reached out to catch it. Unexpectedly, he was quite clumsy. As soon as he raised his hand, he actually swatted my wooden box away. As the box fell, my face instantly went stiff. The wooden box hit the ground and shattered into pieces. A cricket with a bright red head crawled out from the broken wood. My spirits lifted. The red-headed Grand Marshal didn't die from the fall. I hurriedly tried to get up to grab it, but just then, a hand as white and clean as jade appeared before me. I heard a gentle, clear voice, like a warm breeze in early spring, asking if I was all right. I looked up and saw a boy in white around 10 years old. Looking at that somewhat pale face, I couldn't help but be dazed for a moment. This person was truly good-looking. I couldn't describe exactly how he was good-looking, but I felt that in my 7 years of life, he was more handsome than any man I'd ever seen. He wasn't like my Uncle Shen, who was sturdy and heroic. He was even a bit thin. Usually, I looked down on such sickly men. But this person had an ethereal aura, like an immortal from the moon, never touched by a single speck of worldly dust. But while I was staring in a daze, the boy's handsome brows furrowed slightly. He looked at me with deep concern. He asked me another question, making my face flush. Everyone in my Shen family is a sucker for good looks. It's just that before, I only liked fit men like my Uncle Shen. I didn't like weaklings who looked like they'd be blown away by the wind. A man so frail he couldn't take one of my punches. At that thought, my mind cleared. I turned back to look for my red-headed Grand Marshal. But on the street, aside from a few broken splinters of wood, where was there any trace of the red-headed Grand Marshal? My eyes went wide. I felt a dull ache in my heart. I wailed in tragic grief for my red-headed Grand Marshal. The sound was so loud it made the pedestrians' scalps tingle. People gathered around to watch the commotion, but no one could understand my heartbreaking pain. That was something I'd spent a month's allowance on. I'd gone through my cousin's uncle's neighbor's nephew, just to finally smuggle it into the manor. And now, I was kneeling outside the ancestral hall. I rubbed my empty belly. The look on my face was worse than crying. What rotten luck. I sighed for the 108th time. It still couldn't soothe the frustration in my heart. The red-headed Grand Marshal I'd worked so hard to get died before it even saw battle. Not to mention wasting a whole month's allowance for nothing. I was also mocked by those boys who won my accessory. They teased me for having no soldiers to command. I was already fuming with rage. Then grandfather discovered I'd climbed over the wall to sneak out. Inevitably, another punishment followed. The maids who helped cover for me were also kneeling on the ground. Their resentment was even greater than mine. They wondered why the eldest miss had to sneak out, only to cause such a huge scene, letting everyone in the manor find out. I clenched my fists in indignation. Do you think I wanted this? It's all that weakling boy's fault. He insisted on dragging me to the doctor. I'd lost my warrior and was being mocked. I couldn't help but take my anger out on the boy in white. I blamed him for letting his driver speed through the streets. I thought if he argued back, I'd take the chance to punch him to vent my frustration. Who knew he had such a good temper? He apologized repeatedly. And he insisted on taking me to the clinic for my injuries. A mere scrape. It wasn't even as bad as the injuries I get during dance practice. I didn't want to go at all. All the back and forth attracted more and more onlookers. Among them was a servant our manor had just bought. In the end, I was caught and sent back to kneel in the ancestral hall. Next time I see that boy, I'm going to beat him until he cries. I cursed weakly into the empty air. I was so hungry I had no strength left. Just as I was about to sit on the floor to slack off, I heard a maid urgently whispering, "Miss, kneel properly, the old master is here." I snapped my back straight. I looked cautiously at grandfather as he entered the courtyard. "Shin Jin Tang. I told you to stay away from the seventh prince. Do you not want your life anymore?" I looked bewildered. What prince? After being scolded up and down by grandfather, I finally found out. The boy in white today was actually the current seventh prince. Memories of a few months ago flashed through my mind. Grandfather had specifically warned me. The seventh prince had come to our city to recover from an illness. He had been weak since childhood. Since I was a troublemaker who loved to cause chaos, I was never to go near him. If anything happened to a prince, the Shin family couldn't protect me. Didn't you say he was too sick to get out of bed? Then why was he out on the street today? And of all things, why did he have to run into me? Now look at this. Double the trouble. I really am more wrongly accused than Doi. Grandfather, let me explain. I'd suffered too much today. I refused to take another hit of punishment. I quickly pinched my thigh and squeezed out 2 teardrops. I didn't try to get close to the seventh prince. His carriage almost hit me. And he even broke the gift I was bringing for you. That's the only reason I talked to him. Is that so? Grandfather sneered. He stared at me with an ominous look. I could barely maintain my fake aggrieved expression. Bring in the apology gifts that the seventh prince sent for the young miss. Grandfather gave a cold snort, turning around to give the order. 2 servants carried a large basket into the courtyard. From afar, I heard a piercing sound. Thousands of sharp, high-pitched chirps were woven together. The noise made my head spin. Even if he broke a gift, why would the compensation be a whole basket of crickets? Grandfather's roar even drowned out the sound of the crickets. I trembled all over. This seventh prince is despicable. He pretended to send gifts, but he was actually snitching. Knowing there was no way out, I immediately gripped my teeth and lunged, grabbing onto grandfather's leg. I wailed, "Granddaughter is so wrong. My crimes are heinous. Please just hit me. Use a whip, use a stick, anything is fine. Just don't make me copy books. Usually, when I make a mistake, I'm just punished by kneeling. I'm tough, so I'm not afraid of that. But if it's serious, grandfather will definitely make me copy books. I am a strong woman who stands tall. I'd rather shed blood than copy those soul-torturing books." But in the end, I couldn't escape the punishment of copying. This time, grandfather even sent someone to watch me. He absolutely forbade my maids from helping me. With every word I wrote, my resentment toward the seventh prince grew. If not for him, I would have successfully returned with the red-headed grand marshal. Not only would I have won back my accessory, but I would have also humbled those boys. Then, however I sneaked out, I would have sneaked back in. Without anyone knowing. Grandfather wouldn't have found out he was despicable and shameless. Sending an apology gift on the surface, but actually taking the chance to tell grandfather I was out playing with crickets. If I don't avenge this, I'm no woman. I, Shin Jin Tang, will remember this. Perhaps my resentment was too strong. By evening, grandfather sent someone to inform me. Tomorrow, I was to go with him to the seventh prince's villa for a banquet. My spirits lifted. The lethargy of the last few days vanished instantly. Nice one, kid. I was wondering how to get back at you, and you actually have the guts to invite me over. I immediately threw down my brush. I dived straight into my treasure chest to pick out a suitable weapon. Early the next morning, I followed grandfather in a carriage to the seventh prince's villa. On the way, I heard from grandfather that the seventh prince was indeed very sickly before. It was even hard for him to get out of bed. So although he'd been here for months, the local nobles only sent gifts. No one had actually seen him. But after coming to this city, his health actually started improving. Now, not only can he occasionally walk outside, but he also has the energy to host the prominent families of the city. Since I'd had a run-in with the seventh prince, grandfather was willing to take me along. He planned to force me to apologize to the seventh prince. No matter what, it couldn't be the Shin family's fault. Even if I did nothing, I had to apologize for offending the imperial family. I curled my lip behind grandfather's back. I felt the small porcelain bottle in my pocket. I chuckled secretly. Today, I will surely torment that 7th prince until he begs for mercy. The whole way there, I was imagining how the seventh prince would react to the carefully selected treasure I had for him. Just thinking of that tragic scene. If I didn't have to worry about grandfather being right there, I would have burst out laughing. I was aggressive, rubbing my hands together, ready for everything. But when I excitedly jumped off the carriage, I came face to face with a smiling face. Miss Shin. His voice was as gentle and clean as before, those beautiful eyes lit up slightly upon seeing me. It was as if he had been eagerly awaiting my arrival. What is this? Courteous before the battle? Fine, I get it. It's because my grandfather is here. He wants to pretend to be well-behaved and polite. My wrists were still aching from copying books, so I took the opportunity to put on a show in front of grandfather. I gave him a smile even more brilliant than his, grinning widely to show 8 perfectly straight teeth. Seventh Prince, we haven't seen each other in a few days. I've missed you dearly. I had to act more kind and enthusiastic than him. Words weren't enough. I even rushed forward to grab him, giving him a solid and incredibly warm hug. It's just a shame I'm not as tall as him. I could only reach his waist. His waist was even slimmer than a beautiful dancer's. He really is a weakling. Shin Jintang. I just finished my performance, and grandfather shouted my name in excitement. He must have seen how kind and friendly I was to the 7th Prince, right? I happily turned around, prepared to act cute for grandfather. But I saw grandfather's eyes were wide as a tiger's, with what looked like a raging fire burning in them. Something was wrong. I glanced to the side. There were other guests coming to the banquet. The way these people were looking at me wasn't right either. It was like they were looking at a hooligan harassing a respectable girl. I didn't quite understand, but I could tell that grandfather could barely hold back from hitting me. I swallowed hard, unconsciously taking 2 steps back, but I bumped into a chest. I looked to the side and saw I'd bumped into the 7th Prince. The way he looked at me was a bit complicated. Still gentle, but with a bit more envy, longing, or joy. General Shen, please don't mind it. This prince felt like an old friend the moment I met Jintang. I liked Jintang's frank and cheerful nature. While I was full of confusion, I heard the 7th Prince say that. My whole body tensed up. I glanced at him warily. He just called me Mission a moment ago. Now he's suddenly so close he's calling me Jintang? He's even hypocritically praising me. What trick is he trying to pull now? I was on guard for the 7th Prince's tricks. But I didn't expect that because of his words. Grandfather actually silently lowered his fists. I escaped a beating. I was delighted. In my 7 years of life, this was the first time I escaped being disciplined. Grandfather actually listens to the 7th Prince. After discovering this hierarchy, the 7th Prince suddenly looked much more pleasing to my eyes. The banquet began. The 7th Prince said a few words, then the dancers and musicians came out. The 7th Prince was young and too frail to drink. This banquet was just a matter of protocol. To let those who sent gifts of greeting meet him. The new prince invited me to sit by his side. I don't know anything about rules. Anyway, at home, I also sit with grandfather, who has the highest status, so since he asked, I went. The others in the room were all glancing at me openly or secretly. I peeked back. They were elders, so I didn't dare be rude. But the ones my age kept peeking at me, and I definitely didn't like that. I glared at every single one of them until they looked away. In this city, my family has the highest rank. Plus, I have skills myself. Who would dare challenge me? I'd beaten them all up before. So everyone of my generation fears me. I am the boss of the youngsters in this city. I stared them all down into submission. Then looked at the 7th Prince triumphantly. Look at you. I'll let you see clearly who is the real boss of this city. The 7th Prince was laughing again. He was even more gentle and soft than the previous times. This time, his smile became even brighter. I was unhappy. Does he not believe in my status as the boss? Just as I was about to question him, I heard him ask softly, Jintang, were you satisfied with the apology gift I sent? I was furious at those words. My eyes went wide. He really doesn't respect me, what a baby. Aware of grandfather's watchful eyes, I could only grit my teeth and curse in a low voice. The 7th Prince didn't get angry. Instead, he looked bewildered, seemingly not understanding why I was cursing him. Oh, playing dumb now? I kept a cold face and stopped looking at his hypocritical mug. I was calculating in my heart when to throw my invincible itching powder onto him. That'll teach him to be a petty snitch. That'll teach him not to respect my status as the boss. Does Jintang not like those crickets? I ignored him, but he kept trying to engage me. I was at the end of my rope. My hand reached into my collar to find the bottle. Please forgive me for not knowing a girl's heart. Since that's the case, please tell me what you like, Jintang. I will surely find a way to satisfy you. His soft, gentle tone actually made my hand pause. Really? Anything I like? I asked him suspiciously, afraid he was playing me. But he still smiled in a harmless, gentle way. Those eyes seemed to be filled with the softest moonlight, rippling with a clear smile. I silently pulled my hand back from my collar. You really can't slap a smiling face. If he's really going to compensate me, it'd be a bit embarrassing to pull a prank now. I'll consider him sensible. I'll let him off the hook just this once. Then I want a legendary sword that can cut through iron like butter. I sat up a little straighter, looking at the 7th Prince with anticipation. He seemed to daze for a moment when our eyes met. Seeing him daze. My heart sank. I knew he was just teasing me. Alright, I'll drug him right now. Okay, I'll send someone to fetch it right away. I'll find an exquisite accessory for you. He seemed to see the flash of anger in my eyes. And quickly spoke up. I pulled my hand back halfway again. Was I being too cynical? Fine, if he keeps his word. Then I won't hold a grudge anymore, but you don't have to look everywhere. I know where there's a legendary sword. My eyes couldn't help but sparkle. I chuckled and looked toward where my grandfather was. I don't know what method the seventh prince used, but he actually managed to get a prized sword from my grandfather's hands. The pure silver sword was named Qinglong. When used with its specific moves, it's called the Four-Dragon Roar. It was incredibly domineering. I'd asked grandfather for it many times, but never got my wish, yet the seventh prince got it with just a few words. I was both annoyed and happy. Annoyed that grandfather treated the seventh prince better than me, but happy that the seventh prince asked for Qinglong. Just to give it to me. Then I'll consider it a fair trade. For my red-headed grand marshal, to find an opportunity to take the Qinglong sword from the seventh prince. I took the initiative to send him an invitation. Grandfather had retired from the court to spend his old age here, but he couldn't stay idle. So every year, he organizes many horse riding, archery, and martial arts competitions. Tomorrow was another equestrian race. All the prominent families in the city would send their youngsters to participate. I invited the seventh prince to come along. I'd take the chance to get Qinglong from him then. Early the next morning, I got up very early and went to the stables to wait. Seeing how eager I was, grandfather asked suspiciously, "Aren't you usually against coming to these competitions?" "Ha ha ha, how could I not show you some respect, grandfather? I'm definitely here to hold down the fort for you." I smiled guiltily at grandfather. Grandfather gave me a stern warning not to cause trouble, then he left. I breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, I saw a servant leading the seventh prince over. I quickly stood up and went to meet him. "Seventh prince, I've been waiting for you all morning." I grinned widely, looking expectantly at the seventh prince, waiting for him to give me Qinglong. He seemed dazed again. I was impatient to prompt him. But then I saw him return a smile to me. It was different from the previous times. This time, his smile also showed his teeth, just like mine. This time, his eyes curved even more like crescent moons. I was dazed too. I just felt like this man, who was usually an untouchable immortal from the moon, had suddenly become a part of the mortal world. How is it that when an immortal becomes mortal, he becomes even more good-looking? The seventh prince and I sat on the high platform, with my grandfather beside us. The seventh prince had already handed Qinglong over to me. It was tucked safely inside its wooden box. I stole a peek at it, overjoyed, but grandfather was right beside me, even though my heart was desperate to bond with Qinglong. I didn't dare open it in front of him. If he found out that the seventh prince had given Qinglong back to me, he would surely lock it away in the attic again. Wouldn't all my effort be for nothing then? I steadied my mind, not daring to glance at the wooden box beside me again. The equestrian competition was about to begin. Grandfather had put up a prize. An exquisite dagger with a handle, inlaid with a black gemstone. I wasn't very interested. I preferred majestic weapons like Qinglong. These accessories with fancy stones always felt like too much of a burden. But then I saw the seventh prince. His gaze was fixed intently on that dagger. "Do you like it?" I asked him softly. He turned to look at me, his gaze lingering on my eyes for a moment. Then he smiled with narrowed eyes. "I like that black gemstone. It's beautiful." I curled my lip. As expected, these delicate young noblemen just love those flashy, impractical things. I leaned over slightly, my hand accidentally touching the box containing Qinglong. My arm paused. I leaned back toward the seventh prince. "Do you really like it?" "The really kind of like?" He was looking into my eyes again. I didn't understand why. "Yes, I really like it." "Well, fine." Though his taste was a bit poor, I understood the feeling of longing for a weapon you admire. Since he got Qinglong for me, I'll win that dagger as a thank you gift. Don't let my young age fool you. Among the noble sons of Liqing, none can match my skills. As soon as I learned to walk, I was climbing onto horses with my father. After my father passed away, second Uncle Shen indulged me even more. Since I was willing to learn, he taught me everything, even how to fight in a war. If I couldn't win against a group of frail noblemen, I would be tarnishing the reputation of my father and second uncle. I galloped across the field. The other contestants chasing closely behind me posed no threat at all. I felt at ease, even in the mood to perform a few stunts on horseback. Seeing me seize the lead, the crowd erupted in cheers. I triumphantly waved the flag in my hand. Taking a moment to look toward the high platform, I hoped the seventh prince was watching my prowess. Sure enough, I saw the seventh prince's eyes sparkling. I grinned at him proudly. He seemed to daze again. Why is this guy always spacing out? My gaze shifted to grandfather, who was also on the platform. I suddenly felt a jolt of anxiety. Why did grandfather look like that? Was he thinking I wasn't trying hard enough? That I wasn't showing the strength expected of a general's daughter? So I focused my mind, doing my best to show off, hanging upside down, leaning sideways off the saddle. I used every trick I could think of. The cheers from the crowd were deafening. I thought grandfather should be satisfied now. After winning the top prize, I brought the black gemmed dagger back to the platform. But I saw grandfather's expression was even worse. You've really developed some skills, haven't you? Grandfather said through gritted teeth. Yes, your granddaughter doesn't dare be lazy. Since I train diligently every day, I've naturally improved a bit. I didn't quite understand grandfather's meaning, but I still brazenly emphasized my hard work. Grandfather seemed to choke on his words. Seeing him struggle for breath, I quickly stepped forward to pat his back, offering him tea and water. I was incredibly attentive. Shin Jintang, I put that dagger up as a prize, and you went and won it back. If outsiders found out, they'd think my Shin family is too stingy to give away a prize. Grandfather didn't accept my flattery. His scolding was as loud as ever. A light bulb went off in my head. I finally understood why he was angry. What's the big deal? Who would dare talk nonsense? I'll go beat them up. I waved my fist defiantly. I gave the dagger to the 7th prince that day. But when I got home, grandfather gave me a lecture. I felt a bit frustrated. Of all the things the 7th prince could like, he just happened to like the prize grandfather donated. But the 7th prince was quite sensible. He was incredibly moved after receiving the dagger. He insisted on treating me to a meal at the city's largest restaurant. I had been to that restaurant once with grandfather. The taste of the food was truly exceptional, but my family had to support disabled soldiers and their families, so we didn't have much money to spare. My monthly allowance was even more pitiful. Even though I salivated over that restaurant, I never went a second time. So I was very much looking forward to the 7th prince's treat. I started to like him a little bit in my heart. The 7th prince is rich, good-looking, and can even make my grandfather listen to him. I thought he was quite useful, so I decided to take him in as my little brother. On the day of the feast, I saw him order a table full of delicacies, without even blinking. The thought of having him as my little brother grew even stronger. I devoured the food like a whirlwind, finishing 3 bowls of rice in a row. The 7th prince looked dazed, and I was quite proud. Second Uncle Shin said the stronger a person is, the more they eat. My appetite isn't small at all, but you're a different story. You have such a frail build. If your strength is small, your appetite must be small too. I looked at his pale face with a bit of disdain. Yes, Sister Jintang is very mighty. He seemed a bit disappointed by what I said, but he still looked at me with a smile. I saw that his eyes were full of envy, so I took the opportunity to suggest, no need to envy my extraordinary prowess. Tell you what, I'll take you in as my little brother. In the future, if anyone bullies you, just let me know. I'll beat them until they're looking for their teeth on the floor. I clenched my fist to show off my strength. The 7th prince was dazed again. It must be because I accepted him as my little brother. He must be moved. Fine, then I will rely on Sister Jintang to protect me in the future. He wasn't just sensible. His smile was also very handsome. I was extremely satisfied, since I took the 7th prince as my little brother. My days have been quite comfortable. He has money, and often invites me to restaurants to eat and drink. I finally got my wish, to taste all the delicacies and leeching. But unfortunately, no one bullied the 7th prince. So I didn't have a chance to show off. If there's no opportunity, then I'll create one. So, I specifically asked the 7th prince to go hunting with me. This was also an activity organized by grandfather. At the hunting ground, grandfather had layers of guards, protecting the 7th prince so thoroughly not even a drop of water could get through. I wasn't happy about it. If the 7th prince didn't come hunting with me, how could I show him how powerful I am? So, while grandfather wasn't looking, I snuck into the 7th prince's tent. Do you want to go hunting with me? I asked him straight out. But I don't know how to ride a horse. His eyes lit up for a moment, but then he shook his head in disappointment. That's nothing. I'll take you with me. I patted my chest and looked at him expectantly. The 7th prince hesitated for a long while, as if making a very important decision. Then he nodded firmly, accepting Jintang's invitation. I was overjoyed. I finally had a chance to show off my skills. I lured the people outside the tent away, following my instructions. The 7th prince snuck out from the back of the tent. I started to regret bringing him out a bit, because he was truly such a weakling. He even struggled to get on the horse, wasting quite a bit of time. But once we entered the forest, I saw his face full of excitement and curiosity. His eyes were sparkling like a sky full of stars. Since he was so incredibly beautiful, I felt that bringing him out to see the world was worth it. Sit tight. I spotted a wild rabbit, and immediately gave chase. The 7th prince was sitting behind me. My sudden burst of speed seemed to have startled him, so he suddenly reached out and hugged me from behind. By the time I caught up and shot the rabbit, I turned back to look at the 7th prince, only to see that his face was extremely red. What's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well? I thought he had fallen ill, So I quickly asked. The prince said he wasn't sick. I didn't believe him. How could your face be so red if you're not sick? I looked at him unintentionally. Seeing that he was indeed stuck for an answer, I leaned in close to him with a knowing grin. Are you afraid of taking medicine? He quickly moved back. Such a big reaction. I must have hit the mark. I've been weak since I was young. So I've had to take medicine year-round. I'm already used to it. He shook his head with a bitter smile. My eyes widened. Year-round medicine? That's so miserable. When his health was mentioned, the flush on his face slowly faded, and his complexion became pale again. He must have remembered the pain of taking medicine. I shared some advice with him. Don't take small sips when you drink medicine. Pinch your nose and swallow it all at once. Then immediately eat a piece of candied fruit. Oh, speaking of candied fruit, I know a shop on the West Street that makes them extremely well. They're sweet but not greasy. They're delicious. I looked at him with a smile. When we go back, I'll buy a bag for you. You can have a piece after you drink your medicine. Then I'll thank Sister Jean Tang in advance. He also slowly started to smile. I took him wandering through the forest. I caught a few more rabbits. But we didn't encounter any large game. I even saw a wild deer just now. I wanted to chase it, but the horse beneath us was carrying 2 people, so it seemed to be a bit tired. It was running so slowly. How could it possibly catch a deer? I couldn't help but feel discouraged. This lousy horse is really useless. If only I had a warhorse like second Uncle Shin's. I shook my head in frustration. My family does have a good horse in the stables. But grandfather always says I'm still too young, and refuses to give me one. I suddenly remembered that the 7th prince could get things from grandfather. I had a sudden inspiration, and looked at him expectantly. Before I could even voice my suggestion, I saw the 7th prince looking at me with a smile. I know someone who has a legendary stallion. Once I write a letter, I'll ask for it and give it to Sister Jean Tang. I grinned from ear to ear in delight. But I didn't know why he couldn't just ask grandfather for a horse. Why couldn't he just ask directly? Why did he need to write a letter? When I took the 7th prince back, I saw the camp was in total chaos. The 7th prince is back. Before I could find someone to ask, someone pointed at us and shouted. The camp became lively in an instant. Everyone started running toward us. The 7th prince and I were surrounded. In the next moment, I saw grandfather's gloomy face. I was finished. My legs went weak. In my mind, I already imagined the miserable scene of copying books until my hand cramped. Old General Shin, please don't be angry with Sister Jean Tang. It was I who insisted that she take me out to see the world. The 7th prince seemed to notice my nervousness. He took a step forward and blocked me with his body. I looked at his frail build. Yet it was enough to completely cover me from behind. I couldn't help but be moved to tears. I really didn't accept this little brother for nothing. He actually took the blame for me. I peeked out from behind the 7th prince. Although grandfather was full of rage, he suppressed it and didn't rush over to beat me. I became even more satisfied with the 7th prince. He actually managed to hold my grandfather back. I thought the matter was over. But when I returned home, I realized my grandfather was playing the long game. A full 10 lashes. Even though I had thick skin, I still cried from the pain. Not only did I receive physical punishment, I also had to kneel in the ancestral hall and copy books every day. 6 hours of kneeling every day. For 20 days straight. This was the most severe punishment I had ever experienced. It was so severe that it even alarmed my grandmother, who usually spent her days praying. I lay in the ancestral hall with my back full of wounds, listening intently to the conversation outside. I desperately hoped grandmother could help me get out of the punishment. But I heard grandfather's cold and firm response. Jean Tang has no parents. In the past, her mistakes and mischief were only met with small punishments. But this time is different. This girl is incredibly bold. It's fortunate nothing happened when she took the prince into the mountains. If the 7th prince had an accident, how could our Shin family protect her? I was breaking out in a cold sweat from the pain, waiting expectantly for good news. But in the end, I only heard the news of grandmother leaving with a sigh. My heart went cold. And I let out a loud cry. I called out but no one answered. I endured the full 20 days of copying books and punishment. When the punishment finally ended, I had lost a lot of weight, and my knees had developed calluses from kneeling. Grandfather talked to me a lot during this time, and I gained a deeper understanding of the 7th prince, and the imperial family. It turns out that even though the Shin family had 100,000 soldiers, and had produced general after general, we are still no match for the imperial family. The imperial family is the ruler, and the Shin family are the subjects. When the ruler demands a subject's death, the subject has no choice but to die. I didn't understand, so I asked grandfather, but didn't you say that the Shin family fights to protect the common people? Grandfather smiled bitterly. It is for the common people. But the common people also belong to the imperial family. All the land under heaven belongs to the king. The battlefields we fight on, and the common people we protect all belong to the emperor. I nodded with partial understanding. I hadn't fully grasped it yet. But I did know one thing. The seventh prince is a precious son of the imperial family. If he were to get hurt even slightly, even if second Uncle Shen had 100,000 soldiers, he wouldn't be able to protect me. I was feeling quite low. Even though the punishment was over, I wasn't in the mood to go out and play as before. I didn't go looking for the seventh prince, but he sent a letter to me, asking to meet at the restaurant tomorrow. I felt a strange sense of reluctance. But in his letter, he mentioned the legendary stallion we talked about that day. In the end, I couldn't resist the temptation, and went there eagerly. When I saw the seventh prince, the gentle smile on his face was the same as always. When he saw me, joy flashed through those beautiful eyes. Sister Jean Tang, why haven't you come to see me for so long? There was even a hint of grievance in his tone. My lips felt heavy. I didn't mention that I had been punished. I just didn't want to go out. Hearing the lack of enthusiasm in my voice, the smile on his face faltered. But he still asked me gently, "Is there something on your mind?" After holding it in for a long time, I couldn't help but ask him, "You're the son of the king. As long as you speak, plenty of people will gather around you. What difference does it make whether I see you or not?" To think I was so eager to be his boss and protect him. He didn't need my protection at all. The smile on the seventh prince's face slowly disappeared. I saw the light in those beautiful eyes, dimming bit by bit. I felt a bit panicked. My mind instantly flashed back. It seemed I was the one who initially suggested taking him in as my little brother. It's just, after knowing the vast difference in our status, I suddenly felt a bit stifled, but he had always been the seventh prince. Since he entered my world, it was I who didn't understand what the title of prince truly represented. Now that I understood, I felt a sense of disappointment, and took it out on him. Asking him such a thing, I felt like a person with a terrible personality. I hung my head in defeat, not knowing how to face the person before me. After a long time, I heard his voice asking simply, "Does Sister Jean Tang no longer want to be my friend?" I looked up suddenly, seeing that his beautiful lips were becoming even paler, almost to the point of being translucent. He seemed to be in a lot of pain. His eyes were lowered, his lips pressed tight. He looked so fragile. I scratched my head in confusion, not knowing how to respond for a moment. The people around me either flatter me submissively, or treat me with cautious sympathy. Only Sister Jean Tang treats me like a normal person. "Please be my friend," he continued, his gentle eyes watching me quietly. I didn't understand. He's a prince, has endless money, and is so good-looking. Why would others pity him? Oh, because he's sickly. But isn't he much better now? Besides, I didn't treat you as a friend. I treat you as my little brother. I quickly reminded him, but then I remembered his status, and I felt a bit conflicted again. Would this be considered offending the imperial family as grandfather said, "Your little brother?" He laughed instead. His eyes were once again filled with brilliant light, like a galaxy. Fine, I couldn't stand his pale and fragile look. Now that he was smiling again, he looked much better to me. Forget it, ruler or not, subject or not. Since he doesn't mind me, why should I mind him? That makes sense. At most, I just won't take him on any adventures in the future. By the way, the horse you mentioned in your letter, the thought of it made me sit up straight and ask him. He gave a mysterious smile, saying he'd take me to see it after we finished eating. During my recent punishment, my appetite had decreased quite a bit. Now, looking at this table full of delicacies, my hunger was instantly triggered. Eager to see the horse, I ate even faster. In no time, the table was a mess of empty plates. The seventh prince seemed a bit surprised. He stared at me for a while, his expression suddenly turning serious. "Has the general's mansion been mistreating you?" It was my first time seeing his face darken. That refined, jade-like face was actually quite intimidating when it turned cold. "No." I shook my head, confused. But then I thought of the punishment I had recently received, and I couldn't help but pout. I didn't want him to know I was punished. Otherwise, how would I maintain my dignity as the boss? So I put down my chopsticks and urged him to take me to see the horse. He seemed to have more to say, but he couldn't resist my dragging and pulling, so he helplessly led me there. When I saw that tall, pure white horse, my eyes lit up instantly. It's a great horse, no worse than second Uncle Shen's mount. I excitedly stepped forward to stroke it. The horse was very gentle, letting me stand on my tiptoes and pull its mane. This legendary stallion was a tribute from the Northern Kingdom. I thought a fine steed deserved a hero, so I asked for it to give to Sister Jean Tang. Seeing my delight, the seventh prince's smile grew even gentler. My face turned slightly red. "A hero? This little brother actually recognizes me like this. But didn't you ask for this from your grandfather?" He seemed a bit dazed. "Your grandfather?" "No, I sent a letter back to the palace, and asked my father emperor for it." Hearing his explanation, my heart skipped a beat. What a peerless little brother. Having a prince as a little brother is just wonderful. Such a good horse. And he could get it so easily, then give it away just like that. I rode long back to the mansion. When grandfather saw the fine steed beneath me, His face twisted. Yinlong is the name I gave the horse. I felt that under the sunlight. Its pure white coat shimmered like silver. It was beautiful. So I named it Silver Dragon. I deliberately rode in circles in front of grandfather. The seventh prince gave this to me. I bragged to grandfather smugly. You stingy old man, you raised so many good horses but wouldn't give me one. Now I've got one for myself. Afraid that grandfather would covet my Yinlong, I even told him guardedly. The seventh prince asked the emperor for this. Specifically to give to me. If the seventh prince finds out you're keeping my horse back, he'll definitely be angry. Grandfather was so angry his nostrils flared. He clearly clenched his fists. But he didn't come over to hit me for a long time. I found it a bit strange. I was originally prepared to be beaten, having the determination to protect my horse, but grandfather actually refrained from hitting me today. I asked cautiously. Humph. Grandfather squeezed out a cold sneer. I couldn't help but shiver. You know you deserve a beating. I really am. Grandfather kept clicking his tongue in frustration, but he only tossed a letter to me, and then walked away with a flick of his sleeves. Wait, he's really not hitting me? Filled with trepidation, I quickly picked up the letter to read. It was actually a letter written by the seventh prince. In the letter, he tactfully expressed to my grandfather that he should not mistreat me. The letter ended with a sincere apology, saying he didn't mean to interfere in the general's family matters, but he valued me as a friend, and didn't want me to suffer injustice. I was stunned. Except for second Uncle Shen, no one had ever backed me up after I was punished. And when second Uncle Shen pleaded for me, he would usually be punished alongside me. As uncle and niece, we had shared many experiences of being punished together, but when the seventh prince spoke for me, grandfather actually listened. He was so angry he gritted his teeth, yet he didn't hit me. I was in a great mood, cheerfully riding the horse to get it settled. I didn't see grandfather watching me from a distance. Look at her smug face. She really needs a beating. The seventh prince is truly, how could I mistreat that girl? Forget it. She was punished frequently some time ago, and has lost quite a bit of weight. I'll let her be arrogant for a few days. Spring passed and autumn came. Time flew by like a white stallion crossing a gap. Years rolled on. And I was suddenly about to have my coming-of-age ceremony. Speaking of the ceremony, the seventh prince said he wanted to give me a gift. I was looking forward to it very much. Over these years, I became more and more satisfied with the seventh prince as my little brother. He genuinely believed I had the talent to be a general. He praised me so much I couldn't help but blush, but I felt he had great taste. So all these years, I have been a responsible boss. I often took him out to play. Today he invited me to meet at a restaurant, saying he wanted to give me the ceremony gift early, so it wouldn't get mixed up with the gifts on the day of the ceremony. I was full of expectation. As soon as I entered the restaurant, I saw the seventh prince talking to a woman. The seventh prince had grown more handsome over the years. That ethereal temperament of his became more and more otherworldly. His features became more refined. Standing in a crowd, he was so dazzling he seemed to glow. Plus, his health had improved over the years, and his lips regained their color, paired with his fair skin. Even a slight smile was soul-stirring. I knew that woman. She was also the daughter of a military family, but her kung fu wasn't as good as mine, and her chess skills weren't as sharp as mine. I felt I was better than her, but at this moment, the seventh prince was bowing his head to speak to her. I didn't know what she said, but the seventh prince actually nodded and smiled with satisfaction. My heart tightened. Could that woman have seen the virtues of my prince little brother? Was she here to steal my little brother from me? That won't do. If my little brother is stolen, who will treat me to food and fun? Who will praise me for being peerless and brave? I marched forward angrily, and pushed myself between the seventh prince and that woman. Suqingyi, what are you trying to do by getting so close to the seventh prince? I glared at Suqingyi, not forgetting to glare at the seventh prince along the way. This person is not being honest. He already has a boss, yet he dares to flirt with another general's daughter. Is my martial arts not strong enough? Or my chess skills not sharp enough? I sat with the seventh prince in a private room. With my arms crossed and cheeks puffed out, I glared at him, yet a smile appeared on his face. You're still laughing. I snapped at him. I felt a bit aggrieved. Have I not treated you well all these years? Why do you want to find another boss? Find another boss? His smile faltered, his expression turning a bit stiff. Is that not it? I gritted my teeth and said, that Suqingyi doesn't have skills as great as mine. If you follow her, she definitely won't be able to protect you. For some reason, the seventh prince was silent for a long time. Say something. I couldn't help but be anxious. What exactly is this person thinking? Has he truly developed a change of heart? I was just asking her if this gift would suit the taste of you girls. The seventh prince helplessly rubbed his brow. He reached out and handed me a brocade box. I opened the box. Inside was a set of soft gold silk armor. My eyes lit up instantly. I took out the soft armor. It looked soft, but it was woven from gold silk. It was quite heavy in my hand, and very flexible. When wearing it, swords and blades would surely not easily break through the protection. I couldn't put it down. My eyes were full of joy. Is this the coming-of-age gift for me? I asked him cheerfully. Even the dissatisfaction in my heart vanished in an instant. Yes. Seeing that I was happy, a smile returned to the seventh prince's face. I was afraid that, like the basket of crickets when we were young, you wouldn't like it. So I thought I'd ask. That girl, who is also the daughter of a military family, don't overthink it. He seemed afraid I was still worried. So he added, I'm only good to you. I was extremely satisfied. I leaned in with a grin and patted his shoulder. Good for you for knowing your place. Let me tell you. You won't find another boss as reliable as me. He sat back in his chair, seemingly having something on his mind. I saw him hesitate several times. Not speaking for a long time. What's wrong? I couldn't help asking. His expression suddenly became serious. I followed suit and sat up straight. You've come of age. I'm also 18. He stared at me intently. However, at 18, one should have already married and had children. My heart was full of countless thoughts urging me to decide. Marriage? I lay in bed, tossing and turning. My mind kept replaying what the seventh prince said today. I don't know why, but there was a knot in my heart. Get married? I was only 2 when my father died in battle. My mother was overcome with grief and followed him the next year. Second Uncle Shen hasn't married to this day. Grandmother has been practicing Buddhism and rarely leaves her room for years. I don't really understand what being married is supposed to be like. Probably 2 people living together every day. Eating together, sleeping together, and playing together. That sounds okay. With someone around, one wouldn't be lonely normally. But what if the other half's personality doesn't clash? And there's nothing to talk about? I shivered. Wouldn't that be like bringing back an enemy just to annoy myself? But I think the seventh prince, as a member of the imperial family, will surely be able to choose a partner he's satisfied with. His partner will also surely try to please him and cater to his likes. But I feel an inexplicable unhappiness in my heart. If he gets married and spends day and night with his wife, he certainly won't have time to play with me anymore. And if he's to get married, he should be returning to the capital, right? I've heard that princes are given titles upon reaching adulthood. Perhaps he'll be assigned a fiefdom and take his whole family to live there. In any case, whether he stays in the capital or goes to a fief, it seems I won't have a chance to see him. I felt a bit stifled. I thought, it must be that I can't bear for a little brother who has followed me for 8 years to leave. All sorts of messy thoughts. I finally fell asleep, but then I saw the seventh prince again in my dream. He was dressed in vibrant wedding robes. Against that jade-like face of his, he looked breathtakingly beautiful. He was holding his bride's arm. His smile gentle. His gaze soft. His eyes were filled with joy. Just like the way he looks at me. But in the dream, he only smiled like that at the bride. When he turned to see me, his smile vanished into indifference. There was only coldness and detachment. My heart skipped a beat, and I suddenly opened my eyes. The cold and detached seventh prince kept appearing in my mind. I felt very troubled. Not knowing exactly what was bothering me, I simply got up and practiced swordplay in the yard all night. On the day of my ceremony, all the prominent families came. The mansion was bustling with excitement. From afar, I saw the seventh prince, surrounded like a star by the moon, seemed to be looking for me. His eyes searched all around, stopping only after they met mine. He was smiling at me. The smile was as beautiful as the one he gave his bride in my dream. At the thought of that dream, I started to feel troubled again. I simply stopped looking at him and retreated to the backyard. When the ceremony began, I walked into the hall for the hairpinning ceremony. He was sitting in the hall, his eyes following my every move. But I was feeling annoyed and didn't want to make eye contact with him. Once the pinning was over, the instructional speech began. Hearing those lectures made me feel even more annoyed. I peered around surreptitiously. In the end, I still accidentally met his eyes. Those dark eyes lit up, and he winked at me quietly. He understands best how I hate listening to those lectures. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. The frustration in my heart dissipated a lot. He gestured to me, signaling for us to meet secretly after the ceremony ended. Having known him for many years, I easily understood his meaning. I quickly glanced toward the garden lantern, indicating that there was no one there. Grandfather, seated above, noticed my small movements. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes dangerously, clearing his throat to remind me. Even the seventh prince received a complicated look from grandfather. I immediately sat up straight, not daring to make any more small moves. I waited in the Donghua garden for a while, before the seventh prince was quietly brought over by my maid. What is it? I was clearly annoyed and didn't want to see him. But once he was in front of me, my mood instantly lightened. How strange. This is for you. With a smile in his eyes, he handed over a small wooden box. Didn't you already give me a ceremony gift? I was puzzled. He previously gave me a priceless set of soft armor. Today, he sent another gift along with the other guests that was appropriate, but still very generous. And now there's more? I wanted to give it to you, so I did. An inexplicable flush appeared on his face. In an instant, he looked so brilliant he dazzled the eyes. In my hand, I held a hair clip. Made of natural shell, ingeniously crafted into the shape of a small sword. Even for someone like me who finds ornaments troublesome and burdensome, I found it very interesting. A black gem was embedded at the hilt. Inside the black gem, there seemed to be light flowing, combined with the pure silver body of the clip. It was very striking and beautiful. I couldn't help but recall when the seventh prince gave me the hair clip. His face was flushed. Yet he stared intently into my eyes and said, "I think your eyes are as beautiful as black gems." My eyes are as beautiful as black gems? A scene suddenly flashed through my mind. The year we first met. He took an interest in a dagger my grandfather gave as a gift. A black gem was embedded on that dagger. I asked him then if he liked it. How did he answer? "I like it. That black gem is very beautiful." My heart jumped. And my face felt hot. I seemed to have pressed him on whether he really liked it. Whether he liked it very, very much. His answer had been firm. Inexplicably, I felt flustered. I paced around the room for a long time. The panic in my heart did not subside. Instead, it grew more intense. Even my heart began to race. Involuntarily, I walked back to the mirror and inserted the hair clip into my hair. I looked from the side. It seemed wearing a little something. Wasn't that much of a burden? Wait, no. My heart tightened. I quickly took off the hair clip. I am a woman who is going to be a grand general. How can I think jewelry is pretty? Wearing a hair clip on the battlefield would make people laugh. But this hair clip is truly beautiful. I couldn't help but put the hair clip in over and over again. Then take it out, saying I disliked it. But I saw my reflection in the mirror, smiling more and more brilliantly. "It's over. It's all the seventh prince's fault for ruining my resolve to be a general." "What are you giggling at?" At the dinner table, grandfather looked at me suspiciously with a frown. "Nothing, nothing." I suddenly came to my senses. I felt cross. I've been smiling thinking about the seventh prince lately. Just thinking about him puts me in a good mood. I must be poisoned, right? I scratched my head in frustration. I couldn't even eat my food. I just told myself not to think about him anymore. Yet I received another letter from him in the afternoon. He wanted me to go to the lantern festival at night. I frowned, immediately wanting to refuse. A lantern festival at night? It doesn't sound safe. It's not that I'm afraid of being punished by grandfather. It's just that as the boss, I should responsibly protect my little brother. How can I let a prince do such an unsafe thing? But if I refuse him, and he goes by himself, without me watching him, wouldn't it be even more dangerous? No. As a qualified boss, I must ensure his safety at all times. It's not that I want to see him. I'm just worried about him. At night, I met him at the agreed-upon place. I couldn't help but lecture him. "You're really not staying out of trouble. Why would a prince like you want to visit a lantern festival? Look at all these people crowding around. What if you run into danger?" But he looked at me with a beaming smile. "I wanted to see you." My heart skipped a beat. That uncontrollable panic struck my heart again. You wanted to see me? Isn't it the same to see me during the day?" I said stutteringly. "It's not the same. Today is different." He smiled at me again with that gentleness. My heart raced even more frantically, regardless of whether it was safe or not. This lantern festival was indeed very lively. The streets were filled with young men and women. I eventually couldn't resist. I dragged the seventh prince into the crowd, pulling him along to visit all the roadside stalls, collecting many snacks. I saw a stall for lantern riddles. I immediately dragged him over. I couldn't guess them, but the seventh prince was extremely scholarly. He could actually win the top prize. "Young master, would you like to guess some riddles? Correctly answering 10 will earn you that colored glass lantern." The old man at the stall looked at us with a smile. I immediately pushed him forward. "Quick, guess them. That glass lantern is so beautiful." I looked at him expectantly. He smiled and stepped forward to unveil the riddles. "Unafraid of water above, unafraid of fire below. Passes through the west tower, guess the character. Spring rain like a painting, guess the word." The seventh prince solved them one by one, unhurriedly unraveling the puzzles. Before long, a crowd gathered to watch and cheer. He didn't disappoint me. He indeed correctly answered all the riddles, and successfully won that colored glass lantern. "For you." He handed the lantern to me. My eyes curved into a smile. I couldn't help but scan the crowd smugly. "See that? This is the little brother I took in. Look at her husband." A woman, irked by my proud smile, annoyedly pinched the man beside her. Soon, the same words echoed one after another. What husband? I'll beat you guys up." I was so shocked my hair stood on end. My heart suddenly raced. Covering it up, I put on a stern face, threatening them with my fist raised. I stole a glance at the seventh prince. Yet he still had a smile in his eyes. He even cupped his hands to the others who participated in the riddle solving. I was lucky. For the first time ever, I couldn't stand being watched by the crowd. I dragged the seventh prince and ran out of the crowd. I hesitated. I wanted to ask him why he didn't explain. But the words felt redundant once they were at the tip of my tongue. There seemed to be nothing to explain. Was it because I had a guilty conscience? That I'd be in such a hurry to explain to everyone on the street? Wait, why should I have a guilty conscience? I began to feel flustered again, my mind a mess. By the time I regained my senses, I had already followed the seventh prince to the quiet riverbank. Why are we here? I looked at the quiet surroundings, completely puzzled. He looked up at the sky. I sat on the riverbank. Wait a little longer. He seemed to be in an exceptionally good mood today, wearing a beaming smile the whole time. Not knowing why, I waited with him for a while. Until I was bitten by another mosquito. I couldn't help but glare at him. What are we waiting for? Waiting for me to be sucked dry by mosquitoes? The next second, I suddenly heard a bang. I looked up suddenly and saw fireworks exploding in the sky. Like a handful of green beans being scattered, golden lights shot into the sky and finally burst open with a pop. The golden fireworks were incredibly brilliant. After exploding, they turned into a waterfall of stars, falling and vanishing. It was fleeting. Yet new ones followed one after another. The entire sky seemed to be lit up. I was mesmerized, letting out cries of surprise. Do you like it? I was looking at the fireworks. He was looking at me from the side. I turned to look at him and happened to lose myself in those clear eyes. His gaze was full of warmth, though gentle and quiet. It was as brilliant and captivating as the fireworks. My heart was pounding wildly. I couldn't help but nod. I like what you arranged. He smiled but then said, the fireworks are not as brilliant as you. This time, I really couldn't suppress my racing heart. That pounding sound even drowned out the sound of the fireworks, making me feel a bit lightheaded. Look at the fireworks, his voice whispered in my ear. Many people gradually gathered by the riverbank. This must be a cheesy gift prepared by some devoted person for their beloved. I heard the envious discussions of the passers-by clearly in my ears. I seemed to hear the words he said today once again. Today is different. I didn't even know how I responded. It wasn't until I met my grandfather's furious gaze that I suddenly snapped back to reality. I'm in trouble. You went to the Lantern Festival with the seventh prince? Grandfather asked with a cold face. I nodded slightly. Do you know what day it is today? Grandfather's expression grew even grimmer. I swallowed hard, feeling a bit guilty. If I said I didn't know, would grandfather believe me? I really didn't know before I went out. If I had known today was Chishi, I wouldn't have gone empty-handed. I was startled by my own thought. I couldn't help but look at the glass lantern in my hand, and even involuntarily touched the hairpin on my head. Grandfather naturally saw my movements as well. Realizing it too late, it was already too late to try and hide it. Shun Jing Tang, the familiar lion's roar erupted once again. I covered my ears, immediately admitting my mistake like a coward. Grandfather, I know I was wrong. You're wrong? Grandfather was huffing with anger. But for a long time, I couldn't think of where I was wrong, or how to appease him. I was wrong. Wrong for leaving the manor without reporting to you. I scratched my head and asked shamelessly after finished speaking. I saw grandfather take out his whip. I immediately wanted to run. But grandfather said coldly, where are you running? Give me a proper explanation. What exactly is going on between you and that seventh prince? What do you mean, what's going on? I was both guilty and flustered, and couldn't help but stop in my tracks. Grandfather lectured me all night that I was wild and hard to control, and that I was bold and reckless. I admitted to all of these, and wasn't even ashamed of them, but grandfather said to me with a look of disappointment. Do you know what the status of a prince represents? It means he will have many wives and concubines, countless women in his backyard. Could your temperament endure that if you entered a prince's manor? Even the Shin family wouldn't be able to back you up then. What would you do? Besides, that seventh prince is sickly and has no strength. Didn't you used to look down on men like that the most? I couldn't help but look up to explain. He's much better now. He's not sickly anymore. After saying that, grandfather's face turned dark, and my own face stiffened as well. Since that conversation with grandfather that day, I realized my own feelings. I liked the seventh prince. I liked his gentleness and tolerance, and his handsome appearance. I liked how he went to great lengths to win my favor. Looking back at my life, aside from my ignorant childhood years, more than half of my memories were of him. I didn't know when I started having those feelings. Clearly, not long ago. I still treated him as a little brother I was protecting, but feelings are the most irrational things. Somehow, that valve was suddenly opened. No, as I recalled carefully, it wasn't sudden at all. It was clearly his deliberate guidance. I'm not stupid. Looking back now, he intentionally mentioned he was getting older, and that he was being pressured to marry in his letters. Then, step by step, he gave me the hairpin, invited me to the Lantern Festival, arranged the fireworks, along with all his hints both obvious and subtle. I couldn't help but feel annoyed. If he felt the same way, why didn't he just say it openly? He stirred up my emotions so much, only to leave me in this current struggle for so long. But, thinking of his status that grandfather mentioned, and the scenes that might happen after he married, it was like a basin of cold water was poured over me. I calmed down instantly. With my temper, he knew I couldn't tolerate a future husband having a harem of wives and concubines. I truly could not endure it. Even long ago, I thought that if I had to marry, it would be better to find someone from a lower status family. That way, with the Shin family's support, my husband would certainly not dare to bring other women home. But the prince was different. I knew long ago he was of noble birth. How could he be controlled by the Shin family? The color drained from my face bit by bit, and I fell into a state of confusion. In the days that followed, I didn't read any of the letters the seventh prince sent. I hadn't figured out if I could endure that kind of life. An unfamiliar fear made me afraid to meet him. Sensing my avoidance, the seventh prince sent letters more and more frequently, but I didn't even have the courage to open them. I absolutely loathed my own cowardice. Clearly, even grandfather said I was a bold and reckless person. Why couldn't I even face a mere crush now? I kept scolding myself, and finally summoned the courage to open a letter. It was the latest one, sent the day before yesterday. I opened it to read, but my face suddenly froze. I intend to return to the capital, leaving the day after tomorrow. Those few short words made me feel like I was falling into an ice cellar. Isn't the day after tomorrow today? I blankly walked out of the room holding that piece of paper. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I uncontrollably walked outside. Until I bumped into grandfather. What are you doing? Grandfather supported me. Seeing my soulless appearance, he couldn't help but frown. My expression was a bit dazed. Yeah, what was I going to do? I needed to find the seventh prince. And before he left, ask him exactly what his intentions were. I suddenly shouted, someone. Go and ready a horse quickly. No, the servants were too slow. What if the seventh prince had already set off? I sprinted toward the stables, the letter in my hand fluttering to the ground. As I was about to ride out of the manor, grandfather stopped me. Have you made up your mind? Grandfather seemed full of worry. I looked at him steadily and smiled. Don't worry, grandfather. I'm just going to ask if he can't make his own decisions, and will bring wives and concubines into his manor later. Then I won't like him anymore. Can a prince make his own decisions? I wasn't sure, so I went with the intention of giving up on him. Grandfather's lips moved, but in the end, he just stepped aside and let me gallop away. Before long, I arrived at the seventh prince's manor, just in time to see him about to board his carriage. Hearing the sound of horse hooves, he paused his movement to get into the carriage, and suddenly turned his head to look at me. After our eyes met, the dejection between his brows was swept away in an instant. I saw the mist in his eyes seem to dissipate. His eyes shining brightly, he strode toward me. I sat on my horse, looking down at him. I thought you never wanted to see me again. He smiled at me, but the smile wasn't gentle and soft like before. It was instead quite bittersweet, filled with endless disappointment. I opened my mouth, intending to ask my questions with full momentum, but I couldn't get a single word out for a long time. You were fine. Why are you suddenly returning to the capital? I gritted my teeth in self-loathing. Why didn't I dare to ask about that matter? He looked up at me, his eyes full of grievance, as if I had done something unforgivable. Why are you looking at me? I asked you a question. I couldn't stand his gaze, but I didn't want to lose face by looking away awkwardly, so I snapped at him in a rough voice. I'm returning to the capital to ask father for a marriage decree, he said through gritted teeth, looking at me even more resentfully. What? My heart had already. Then, a dense pain surged through my heart. I said I'm returning to the capital to ask father for a marriage decree. Since you don't like me, I'll have to force father to decree that you become my wife. He said each word very seriously, his eyes filled with tangible obsession. I looked at him blankly, and the pain in my heart seemed to vanish instantly. You can avoid seeing me, but can you avoid an imperial decree? He smiled faintly, and though his words were quite overbearing, the look in his eyes was somewhat cautious. What was he afraid of? Was he afraid that because he wanted to seek a marriage decree, I would loathe his arbitrary behavior? I suddenly jumped down from my horse and walked toward him. Then I'll go to the capital with you. I want to seek a decree too. What will you seek? To ask father to refuse my decree? He tightly grabbed my arm, with some panic in his eyes, and a trace of pleading. I'll ask the emperor to promise us one life, one couple, for eternity. I looked at him and spoke each word just as seriously. In the end, we didn't go to the capital city. Instead, we went to the general's manor together to see my grandfather, because the seventh prince said that once an emperor speaks, it is a golden word and a jade promise. He wanted to get my grandfather's permission first, then send a letter to the capital to ask the emperor for the marriage. I had thought that if my grandfather needed permission, I wouldn't need it at all, and intended to go straight to the capital to seek the decree. That was truly disregarding me, but he lowered his eyes and said softly, I lied to you. How would I dare ask father for a decree without your nod? Wouldn't that make you loathe me even more? Then why did you pack your bags to return to the capital? I was full of doubt. When you wouldn't see me, I knew you had realized my feelings. And were intentionally avoiding me. I sent so many letters and got no response. I thought you didn't feel the same way about me, so I wanted to leave. His voice was filled with grievance. I guiltily avoided his gaze. I just hadn't thought it through yet. Better than staying and leeching. And making you unwilling to even leave your manor. He looked at me resentfully. Making me feel even more guilty. How did you know I haven't left the manor these past few days? He chuckled self-mockingly. I went to your manor every day. I almost turned into a wife-waiting stone. What are you saying? I felt even more guilty. I pretended to hit him, finally making him shut up. Seeing the seventh prince visit. Grandfather cast me a look of disappointment. I didn't dare to look him in the eye, and looking at my toes, I nudged the seventh prince beside me. Justly making him face it alone. The seventh prince's temperament wasn't as soft as his gaze. He stepped forward decisively. Bowed to my grandfather as a junior. And spoke with a firm voice. Gu Jingyi wishes to take Jin Tang as his wife. Promising her one life, one couple, for eternity. I hope old General Shen will grant us this. Grandfather sneered. Seeming to forget the person before him was a prince. His eyes flared with anger and he was not polite at all. I hurriedly reminded him. Leaning close to grandfather, and whispered, aren't you afraid of offending the royal family? Grandfather did retract his gaze from the seventh prince. But that burning gaze then glared at me. I swallowed hard. And threw a good luck look to the seventh prince. Not daring to speak up anymore. One life, one couple? The seventh prince nodded seriously. Without any hesitation on his face. What guarantee do you have that you can decide for your father? Grandfather asked in a deep voice. You've been away for 8 years to recover from your illness. Long removed from the center of power. The seventh prince smiled, looking relaxed. Surely old General Shen knows better than I do. How many eyes there are in leeching, secretly watching my every move. I was stunned. Are there? Why didn't I notice? I was a bit nervous. People were watching me and I hadn't noticed at all? Then what am I doing dreaming of being a general? But it seems a general can't get married. I couldn't help but feel conflicted. For many years, I haven't recruited any followers. Nor have I made connections to gain power. All the letters sent to my manor have likely been opened and checked by the Imperial Guard long ago. Not only are my brothers aware of this, but father knows it even better. I was pale with shock, trying hard to recall the letters the seventh prince sent me. Thankfully, I was not ambitious, only thinking about eating, drinking, and having fun. Our correspondence was always about where to eat and where to play. Well, I'm not sure about those that weren't opened. The seventh prince's smile grew even more brilliant. A prince with no interest in power. Marrying the daughter of General Shenhua. Not only won't affect the political situation, but can also win over the Shen family for the royals. This should put my father's mind at ease. Besides, I once earned a blank promise from father. I will use it to ask him to allow me to have only Jin Tang as my wife in this life. I still hadn't figured it out until the day of our engagement. Seventh Prince Gu Jingyi had actually calculated everything step by step, planning long ago how to make me his wife. How long ago? Probably from the year we first met. He began to report to the capital his lack of interest, and his determination to stay out of power, day after day, year after year, until he was completely removed from the center of power, and won the emperor's trust. And I, like a fool, was blinded by his gentleness, and walked into his trap step by step. It was indeed as he said. When he asked for the marriage, the emperor quickly agreed, and at the same time granted him his request for one life, one couple. When he joyfully brought a box of deeds to find me, I only then found out he had started preparing the betrothal gifts many years ago. Tanger, look. This is the restaurant that you like most. I bought it so you can go and eat there anytime. And this one, you liked the weapons they made the most. So I bought it too. It'll be convenient for you to forge weapons in the future, and this. I counted more than 100 deeds. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. Taking in this little brother wasn't a loss after all, but even after we marry, I'm still your big brother. You have to listen to me. I warned him. Yes, I'll need my wife to look after me for the rest of my life. His eyes were full of smiles, radiating unparalleled tenderness.